I never told my boyfriend about the $40,000 monthly salary. For the entire year we were together, he always thought I was just a regular office worker, living frugally in a tiny apartment. I let him believe that, because I wanted to know if he loved me, not the numbers in my bank account. One day, he invited me to dinner with his parents, who were about to become my in-laws, flying in from overseas. But the moment I stepped through the restaurant door, there was no welcome, only disdain. What happened that night left my future in-laws, Bianca and Thomas, stunned and humiliated beyond what they could have imagined. Believe me, they deserved every bit of it. Let me start from the beginning. Let me explain who I really am. Because Robert, my boyfriend, even at 32 years old, still had no idea of the truth about the woman he was dating. To him, I was just Hannah, the girl who left early, came home late, always tired, no fancy dinners, cooking with scraps from the fridge. A basic office worker, probably a secretary, nothing special. And I never corrected that impression. I never said I earned $40,000 a month, that I was already a senior executive at a multinational corporation, signing million-dollar contracts and making decisions that affected thousands of employees. Why would I? Money was never something I wore like a medal on the wall. I was raised by my grandfather to believe that dignity comes from within, and silence is more valuable than empty words. So I kept the truth to myself. I stayed in my modest little apartment, used the same worn leather bag, bought clothes on sale, cooked at home, saved everything, invested everything, quietly built my wealth. Because true wealth doesn't need to be shown off through things. That Tuesday afternoon, when Robert called, his voice sounded different, nervous, like he was worried about something. "Hannah, I need a favor." "Simone, no. My parents are back from overseas. They want to meet you. Saturday night? Fancy restaurant? Can you come?" There was something in his voice that made me uneasy. It didn't sound like a lover's invitation. It was the voice of someone afraid of being embarrassed, afraid of not measuring up, afraid of having to apologize. And that name, Simone. "Do they know anything about me?" I asked calmly. Silence. Then Robert stammered, "I told them you work in an office, live alone, simple, don't have much." That word, simple, felt like a blade, as if my entire life had been reduced to a single pathetic adjective, as if I was some burden that needed justifying. I took a deep breath. "All right, I'll be there." I hung up and looked around the living room. The old but comfy sofa, bare walls without fancy art, the tiny TV. Nothing impressive. I had heard of Bianca and Thomas, his parents, successful, flashy, and a little arrogant. I knew they valued status and background. And at that moment, I made a decision. If my boyfriend thought I was poor, if his parents came with their assumptions, I'd give them exactly what they expected. I would pretend to be poor, naive, desperate, a girl struggling to survive. I wanted to see, if I had nothing, how would they treat me? I wanted to see their true faces, because I suspected something. I didn't doubt Robert's love for me, but if I was going to marry into his family, I needed to know if they were the kind of people who measured human worth by a bank account. Saturday arrived. I wore the worst outfit in my closet. A wrinkled, shapeless light gray dress, the kind sold at thrift markets. Worn-out shoes, no necklace, no watch. I grabbed a faded canvas bag, tied my hair in a low ponytail, looked in the mirror. I looked like someone life had beaten down, but still polite. Perfect for the role I was about to play. I called a taxi and gave them the address. The most upscale restaurant in the city. The kind of place where menus don't list prices, where each piece of silverware costs more than the average worker's monthly wage. On the way there, I felt strange. a mix of nervousness and sadness. Nervous because I didn't know what was coming next. Part of me still hoped I was wrong, hoped they'd be kind, that they'd look past my old clothes. But the other part, the part that had swum with corporate sharks, knew all too well. People like Bianca and Thomas rarely miss a chance to judge others by appearances. The taxi stopped in front of the restaurant. Warm golden lights, a doorman in white gloves, elegant guests stepping inside. I paid. The white-gloved doorman opened the door for me. I stepped down, took a deep breath, and crossed the threshold. At the table near the window, Robert was already standing. Dark suit, perfect tie, polished shoes. He saw me, his brows furrowed slightly, like he was worried about something. Beside him sat Bianca and Thomas, his parents, already at the table. They looked exactly as I had imagined. Bianca wore a form-fitting emerald green dress, sparkling with sequins, a necklace, bracelets, and a diamond ring flashing under the lights. Her black hair was tied up elegantly. Her cold beauty made people hesitant to approach. Thomas was in a flawless gray suit, a large watch, stern face. The two of them looked like they had stepped out of a luxury magazine. But what caught my attention more was the woman sitting next to them, Olivia, a close family friend of Robert's, and the woman his parents once hoped he would marry, sat right beside Bianca. Tight red couture dress, perfectly waved hair, glossy red lips. I walked toward them slowly, small hesitant steps, like I didn't belong. Robert saw me first. His face changed. His eyes widened, scanning me from head to toe, swallowing hard. You said you'd come." His voice was awkward. "Of course, love," I smiled shyly, the smile of someone unfamiliar with places like this. Bianca reached out her cold hand for a limp handshake. Thomas nodded with a fake smile. Olivia glanced at me and smirked. "You're Robert's girlfriend?" "You look like my housemaid." The whole table laughed, and I just smiled back. "Yeah, maybe. But your words don't really match the clothes you're wearing." The air froze for a second. Bianca quickly smoothed things over with a sweet voice. "Oh, Olivia's just joking." She's known Robert since they were kids. I was seated at the far end of the table, the farthest away, like a second-class guest. Robert pulled out a chair to sit next to me, but a light cough, a reminder from his mother, made him retract his hand and return to the seat closer to Thomas. The menu was thick and heavy in French. I opened it and pretended to be confused. Olivia watched me. "Need help?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I didn't even have time to respond before Bianca called the waiter, her voice gentle but laced with suggestion. "Please get her something simple, something cheap. She doesn't seem familiar with complicated French dishes." I lowered my head slightly, voice soft and calm. "Thank you, the cheapest dish will be fine." That sentence made Thomas clear his throat, and Robert clenched his hands under the table. Olivia twirled her wine glass. No one said anything. I just watched. When the food arrived, throughout the meal, all they talked about was money. About the $1,000-a-night hotel they were staying in. About the luxury car they rented, just for convenience. About the shops they'd just splurged at. Only a few thousand, not much. Olivia joined in, bragging about her trip to Switzerland with Bianca. "Bianca's mom picked all Hermes bags. I only bought a few Dior dresses. No big deal." The whole table laughed. No one noticed or commented on how she referred to Bianca as Bianca's mom. Then Bianca turned to me, eyes laced with a bit of pity. "And what about you, dear? What do you do for work again?" I replied softly. "Administration, paperwork, something simple." "Ah," she nodded, half smiling, then exchanged glances with her husband. "Well, honest work. Every job is noble, right?" "Yes." The food came, large plate, tiny portions like artwork. Bianca sliced her $80 steak with surgical precision. "Quality is worth it," she said. "Can't just eat anything." I nodded. Robert tried to change the subject to work. Bianca interrupted. Son, your girlfriend lives alone? Robert nodded. Just a small apartment. Bianca looked at me, faux sympathy. That's tough. At your age, alone like that. Do you make enough? I whispered. I manage. Save a little. Olivia jumped in. We have 3 homes in 3 countries. She took a sip of wine, smiled faintly. I think Robert needs someone of the same caliber, not overly modest. She trailed off, but the way she looked at me, everyone got it. I just smiled, said nothing. Let them talk. All about their 3 country homes, their assets, their shares, their investments. Let them flaunt their wealth like medals. Seeing my calm reaction, Olivia gave a theatrical sigh. Truly brave. I admire women who struggle alone, Bianca sneered, then continued. After all, everyone wants to give their children a better life. But what parents can give, that's what separates people. A hidden jab. She was implying my parents didn't give. The question landed like a fine, cold, precise blade. I gave a faint smile, looked down at my glass of water, and replied calmly, Not much. They just sent a small gift. Within their means, Olivia let out a laugh, sharp and cold. How cute! I really like people who live simply. Every little detail is precious, right? Bianca set her wineglass down, her voice laced with pride. We've always believed parents should invest in their children, not just with money, but with lifestyle too. Like Thomas and me, for example, we want Robert to understand what class means. So when he said he wanted to marry you, to be honest, I was a little concerned. She glanced at me, her eyes gleaming as if trying to read through me. Do you know how to appreciate wine? I answered softly. I only drink on special occasions. Even the cheap kind is fine, as long as it suits my taste. Robert immediately cut in, voice tense. Mom, come on! That's just her preference. There's no need to. But Bianca raised her hand, cutting him off. I'm just asking, Robert. No need to be so sensitive. She turned back to me, lips curling into a fake smile. Oh, don't worry. Not everyone has refined taste. Palates need to be trained. Through travel, through experience, through education. Thomas and I have visited most vineyards in Europe and South America. We know what fine wine tastes like. Robert clenched his fists under the table, his eyes silently begging me to let it go, but I just smiled faintly. A calm smile, so light it was almost transparent, as if I were merely observing a play, not truly part of it. Thomas nodded and raised his glass of red wine. Exactly. Each bottle like this runs about $200, but it's worth it. When you know how to choose, you don't mind the cost. I replied quietly, I understand. Everyone has their own way of enjoying things, Bianca continued. Simone picks things up so fast. She has taste, just like her mother. And you? What are your hobbies? I shrugged gently. I like cooking, walking in the park, working out. Simple things, a moment of silence. Bianca and Thomas exchanged a quick look. Then she smiled lightly. That's lovely. A simple life has its own charm too, but, of course, everyone hopes to experience more, travel further, broaden their world, right? But I understand, not everyone gets that chance. The waiter brought out dessert. Tiny cakes that looked like works of art, priced at $30 for portions no bigger than half a hand. Bianca picked the most expensive one, cut a piece, and smiled proudly. Exquisite. It even has real gold on top. They only serve this one to special guests. I looked at the sparkling slice on the silver plate, then down at my own simple dessert. Soft, sweet, unpretentious. And I smiled. Because sometimes simplicity is the only thing that still tastes real. When Robert's phone rang, he stepped outside to take a call from work. Bianca leaned slightly toward me, her tone suddenly serious. You know, we're all adults here. Maybe today's a good time to speak frankly. She set down her wineglass, her gaze shifting from friendly to cold and calculating. Robert is our only son, And naturally, we just want what's best for him. But this marriage, to be honest, we're afraid certain things might hold him back. Thomas nodded, lacing his fingers together on the table. We understand you've been independent. That's admirable. But Robert's under a lot of pressure right now. He needs a partner who can help keep things steady, not someone who adds to the burden. I lifted my head, voice quiet but steady. A burden? Bianca smiled. The kind of smile that comes before a killing blow. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, if you're struggling, we're willing to help. Just a bit of financial support, a gesture of goodwill. To be direct, we can transfer $500,000 to you to help you start over somewhere else, live comfortably, and allow Robert to fully focus on his future. I sat still, fingers tightening around my glass of water. For a few seconds, the air turned thick. Bianca continued, "Of course, just between us." Not a bribe, just help. Think of it as a gentle parting gift, Thomas added. You're still young, beautiful, smart. I'm sure you'll find your own path soon enough. I set the glass down softly, as if I hadn't heard the insult in every word. $500,000, I repeated. To disappear? Bianca raised an eyebrow. Don't put it like that. I just want to make sure Robert doesn't get tied up in unnecessary things. I raised my head, met her eyes. My voice, no longer shaky, came out cold and calm. That's quite a generous offer. But tell me, when you said unnecessary, you meant me, didn't you? The mood at the table shifted instantly. Thomas cleared his throat. Bianca gave a strained smile. I tilted my head slightly, still composed. I just want to make sure I heard you right. $500,000, just to guarantee that I vanish from Robert's life? Honestly, that number isn't bad. But here's the thing. I paused, eyes fixed on Bianca. If you think my self-worth can be bought with money, then maybe the only cheap thing here isn't me. My tone sharpened, slower and more precise. You talk about investments, right? $500,000 for the woman your son loves. But I wonder, what kind of return are you expecting on that? Does it earn you more respect? I paused, turning my gaze directly at Olivia. Or does it just make people afraid of you? Afraid because you measure everything, even love, in dollars? Bianca opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand to stop her. From the start of this dinner, all you've talked about is money. How much you spend, how much you have, how much you give. But did you ask me even once how I live, whether your son is happy with me, or what plans we have for the future? Thomas frowned. You're misunderstanding us. I cut him off, voice low and sharp. No. I understand perfectly. What you call help is just another way to belittle someone. But the real issue is, you don't know who you're talking to. I leaned forward slightly, voice steady. I used to be a secretary at 23, making minimum wage, working 12 hours a day, studying at night, surviving on expired bread. But I climbed up, step by step, from staffer to team leader to director. I lifted my head, eyes locked on theirs. Now I manage hundreds of people, oversee hundreds of millions of dollars, sign contracts that require 3 lawyers just to interpret, and I earn $40,000 a month. And the money I've invested surpasses what you were gifted by your own parents. The table fell into absolute silence. Thomas looked stunned. Bianca's mouth hung open, speechless. You know, I said, voice soft as a whisper, the people who talk the most about money usually understand the least about real value. And I think you just proved that. I looked around the table, the soft golden light reflecting off the wine glasses, the silverware glinting like they were examining every word I was about to say. I live simply, I began slowly, because I have nothing to prove. Every eye turned toward me. I wear ordinary clothes, live in a small apartment, eat modest meals. Not because I'm poor, but because I've come to understand that the more a person truly has, the less they feel the need to show it off. Bianca tilted her head slightly, her eyes flickering with irritation. So you pretended to be poor just to test us? I gave a faint smile. Not exactly. I just wanted to see how people would treat me when they assumed I had nothing. I paused. And tonight, I saw it, clearly. A thin smile flickered across my lips, even clearer than I expected. Her face turned red, equal parts shame and fury. How ridiculous! If you actually made that much money, we would have known. Robert would have known. He'd never believe you lived like this. I tilted my head gently, still calm, because I chose to. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted the person I loved to love me for who I am, to respect effort, not material things. Thomas cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Even so, you've been quite rude. You misread our intentions. I looked directly at him. Did I? Did I misread it when she called me a burden? When she offered me $500,000 just to stop being a problem? When this entire dinner has revolved around money, value, and status? Silence fell over the table. I stood up, set my napkin gently on my plate, and looked at them evenly. Let me tell you something that maybe no one's ever had the courage to say to you. Money doesn't buy dignity, it doesn't buy real education, and it sure as hell doesn't buy genuine love. Bianca shot up, her voice shaking with rage. And you? You deceived us. You pretended to be poor. You made us look like fools. I answered, voice cold and clear, every word razor sharp. I didn't make you look like fools. You did that all by yourselves. I took a step back, voice dropping. All I did was give you a chance to show who you really are. And you did that perfectly. Bianca trembled, her face pale. You have no right. Yes, I do, I cut her off. I have the right to be respected. Not because of money, but because I'm a human being. Something the two of you seem to have forgotten throughout this entire meal. I picked up my canvas bag and pulled out a sleek black card with a platinum sheen. I placed it on the table in front of Bianca. This is my company card. No limit. Let me pay for this dinner. Consider it a gift from the poor girl you were so generous to pity. Bianca looked at the card like it was dangerous. The light reflected off the silver letters engraved with my name. Hannah Sterling. Her hand shook as she lifted it. I don't need your money, she whispered. I know, I replied, but I didn't need your pity either. And yet you gave it to me all night. I leaned in slightly, my voice low but steady. Olivia, you once said you admired strong, independent women. So let me ask, have you ever actually worked alone? Without your parents? Without inherited money? Have you ever built anything on your own? The air thickened. Olivia was speechless. Thomas shook his head, trying to reclaim his authority. You're overreacting. We were only trying to help. I tilted my head. Help? Then let me ask. Have you ever truly helped someone without expecting anything in return? I took a step closer to Thomas. If you can name just one time, just once, that you were kind to someone who had nothing, I'll transfer you $1,000,000. Right here. Right now, Thomas opened his mouth, then fell silent. His face went pale. I nodded slightly. I thought so. Because to you, people only have value if they come with a bank account. The air in the room felt like it was about to explode. Thomas gripped the chair arm tightly, and just then, Robert returned to the table after taking his urgent call. He looked around, sensing the strange tension blanketing the room. What's going on? He asked quietly. I smiled. Nothing, love. Your mother just tried to put a price tag on my worth, and failed. I adjusted my shawl, my voice calm but firm. Dinner was lovely. But I think I should leave now. I turned to walk away when Thomas spoke up. Wait, let us pay. He signaled to the waiter, who approached hesitantly. Would you like anything else? Thomas shook his head curtly. Just the bill. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Bianca sat back down, defeated. Her posture no longer elegant. She sat like someone who had just lost something important. Not money, power. Hannah, she said, her tone softer now, less aggressive. I don't want this to ruin the family. Olivia loves Robert. We only wanted— Wanted what? I cut her off. What's best for your son? By demeaning others? Bianca. But we can fix this, she insisted. Start over. No, I interrupted firmly. We can't. Because now I know who you are, and you know who I am. That truth can't be erased with empty apologies or fake smiles. You treated me like garbage, with pleasure, because you thought you could. Thomas cleared his throat. You were the one deceiving. You started this. Yes, I nodded. I started it because I needed to know. I needed to confirm my suspicions that you're not good people. Money doesn't make you better. You're exactly the kind of people who look down on those with less. Bianca whispered, We're not bad. Maybe not, I replied. But we are different. The waiter returned with the bill, placing it in the center of the table. No one reached for it. Bianca looked at the card on the table, then at me. We won't use your card. We'll pay ourselves, like always. Perfect, I said. Keep the card as a souvenir, to remind you that not everything is what it seems. The woman you've looked down on all night has more than you've ever dreamed of. It's not just about money, Bianca muttered, setting the card back on the table. I don't want it. You're not old enough to lecture us about values. I pushed the card back toward her. Keep it. You might need it one day. If you ever meet someone like me again, someone pretending to be less, you might get it wrong again. Thomas pulled out his wallet, retrieved a few gleaming gold cards, picked one, and set it on the bill. The waiter took it away. No one spoke during the wait. The silence was heavy, uncomfortable, suffocating. Olivia sniffled quietly. Robert held my hand. Bianca stared at the wall. Thomas checked his phone to avoid eye contact. The waiter returned. Sir, your card has been declined. The whole table froze. Thomas flushed red. That's impossible. Try again. Once more, the machine beeped. Declined. The waiter repeated. Declined. Do you have another form of payment, sir? Thomas's face burned. Can't be. That card has a high limit. He handed over another card. The waiter went to run it. Bianca glanced nervously at her husband. What's going on? No idea, Thomas snapped. Bank error? I nodded, feigning sympathy. Of course. How inconvenient, the waiter returned. Sorry, this one's also declined. Thomas shot up. Ridiculous. I'm calling the bank now. He stormed out of the restaurant. Bianca remained seated, ashamed, humiliated. This has never happened, she murmured. Never. Terrible timing, I said calmly. I guess banks do have a sense of irony. I pulled out my worn leather wallet and took out another card. Slim, heavy, and gleaming. The waiter paused when he saw it. A Centurion card, the kind reserved for the top 0.01% in the world, with a $5,000 annual fee just to hold it. I placed it on the tray, saying nothing. Less than 2 minutes later, the waiter returned, nearly bowing. Thank you, Miss Sterling. It's all taken care of. Would you like a receipt? I smiled. No receipt. Thank you, the waiter nodded and left. Bianca stared at the spot where the card had been. She sat frozen, hands clenched in her lap, eyes empty. I stood up, picked up my old wallet and canvas bag, glanced around the table, everyone still silent, and smiled slightly. Thank you for helping me see who you truly are tonight. Bianca flushed. Olivia looked away. I turned and walked toward the exit. Robert pushed the door open just as I reached it, his blazer slightly disheveled, sweat on his brow. He stood frozen in the doorway, the warm lights casting a glow over his bewildered face. The table was dead silent. I'm heading out, I said softly, my voice polite, like saying goodbye to a guest. I walked out of the restaurant, the sound of my heels tapping lightly against the marble floor. Each step echoed like a slow, deliberate countdown to the end, measured but final. The hallway stretched long under dim golden lights, casting my reflection onto the cold glass. slender and solitary. No one followed, until I heard the door swing open behind me. "Hannah, wait!" Robert's voice cracked in the chill of the hallway. I didn't turn back. The light from inside spilled across his figure as he ran toward me, bathed in a weak golden hue. His breath came hard and fast. He grabbed my hand, hot, trembling. "What happened?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him, and that look alone was enough for him to understand that something had shattered. Behind us, the restaurant door opened again. Bianca's voice cut through, quiet but ice cold. "Robert!" We both turned. She stood there in the glow from the restaurant, elegant coat, red lips trembling with fury. "If you still plan on staying with her," she said, each word carved out with disdain, "then don't expect a single cent from this family." Thomas stepped out right behind her, voice low and hard as stone. "You saw tonight for yourself. She humiliated your mother at the dinner table, turned our entire family into a joke. If you continue this, we'll cut all ties. No inheritance, no company, no name." Robert froze. The light from the restaurant sign hit his face, dividing it in two, one side bright, the other dark. I looked at him and gently shook my head. "Don't say anything, Robert. This is your choice, not mine." My voice was soft but resolute. "I don't want to be the reason you have to choose between the person you love and the people who gave you life." I turned away. Cold wind swept through the corridor, carrying with it the faint scent of expensive perfume lingering in the air. My heels struck the floor, each step heavy but certain, like the sound of a heart sealing off a chapter. Behind me, Bianca's voice rang out one last time, brittle and broken beneath its sharpness. "Robert! If you walk away with her, don't ever come back." I didn't stop. Not once. I only heard Robert standing there, saying nothing, taking no steps, just watching me leave. I left him with a choice, as the final test of love, not measured by money, but by courage. I don't know what he decided that night, or what he did after. I only know this. Some relationships, if you must trade your dignity to keep them, then losing them might just be the most right thing you could ever do. That night, after leaving the restaurant, I called a taxi. The car door closed, sealing me off from the noise of the city. Outside, the streetlights passed across the windows like faint streaks of light, yellow, white, red, intertwining in the night. I leaned my head back against the seat, listening to the wind howling outside. The driver didn't say a word, just softly turned on an old jazz tune. I looked out the window, couples holding hands walking by, strangers laughing together. The world kept moving forward, as if no dinner had ever happened. When the car stopped in front of my small apartment, I paid the fare, gave a quiet thank you, and stepped out. The cool air wrapped around me, and I took a deep breath. I climbed the stairs, one step at a time, unlocked the door, and was immediately met with the familiar scene. The slightly faded gray couch, the small painting on the wall, the plant I had potted last spring. Everything was quiet. Everything was real. No glamour, no performance. I hung my canvas bag on the hook, slipped off my shoes, and sat down on the floor, back resting against the couch. The only sounds in the room were the ticking of the clock and the rain tapping gently against the window. I poured myself a glass of water, sipped slowly, and felt the warmth return to my throat. Everything was so simple, it felt peaceful. It had been a long time since I felt this way, not happy but calm. A kind of absolute quiet that needed no witness, no explanation. I thought, maybe tomorrow I'll go outside, not for work, not for anyone else, just to walk, aimlessly, unhurried, just to breathe and think. The next morning, I put on something simple. Worn jeans, an old beige sweater, the sneakers with thinning soles. I grabbed my keys, locked the door, and stepped outside. The morning air was oddly fresh. I just kept walking, not thinking too much, just listening to the sound of my footsteps blending into the hum of life. At the park near my apartment, I sat down on a wooden bench beneath the trees. In front of me, people passed by, faces plain but radiant. I realized most of them probably weren't rich, maybe just getting by, just enough to eat. But they all smiled. They talked, laughed, hugged each other like it was the most natural thing. They didn't have much, but they had each other. And I thought of Bianca, of Thomas, of the diamonds, the lavish vacations, the endless boasting about class and worth. I wondered, were they truly happy? Or were they just trying to fill a void with the cold shine of material things, things that could never warm a heart? An elderly woman stopped beside me, canvas bag in hand. She sat down and smiled gently. "Beautiful morning, isn't it, dear?" I nodded. "Yes, it is." She reached into her bag, pulled out a piece of bread, and broke it up for the pigeons at our feet. "I come here every Sunday," she said. "This is my quiet time before everything gets chaotic again." I smiled, watching the birds flutter and peck at the crumbs. I understand that feeling. Maybe I needed some quiet today, too. "Tough day?" she asked gently. I hesitated. "A sleepless night. But yes, sometimes one night is enough to change everything." She nodded slightly, her clouded eyes still bright with understanding. "Let me tell you something. You may not need to hear it, but I'll say it anyway. You see those birds?" She pointed. "Some are big, some small, some white-feathered, some gray. But when I throw bread, they all eat together. Not one of them thinks it's better than the others." I chuckled. "Sounds like a metaphor." "No," she shook her head. "That's just the truth. Only humans invented all these pointless categories, using money to measure worth, status to measure character. Birds don't do that. They just live." Just be I went quiet. Every word she spoke struck a chord deep within me. She continued. "People keep chasing, comparing, buying, proving, until one day they realize, no matter how much they have, in the end, we all return to dust. Rich or poor, diamonds or worn-out slippers. No one takes anything with them." I exhaled softly. "You sound like a philosopher." She laughed. "No, just someone who's lived a long life. 72 years now. I've seen it all. And to be honest with you, the most miserable people I've ever met were the ones who had the most. Because for them, it was never enough." Her words kept echoing in my mind. I turned to her and softly said, "Thank you for the reminder." She smiled, placed her hand gently on mine. "Don't thank me. Just remember this. It's not about how much you have. It's about how you treat people. That's what truly stays. The only thing that lasts beyond everything else." She stood, gathered her bag, and waved. "Have a peaceful Sunday, dear." I smiled. "You too." I watched her walk away, small, hunched back, old clothes, worn shoes, but wiser than Bianca and Thomas combined. I felt grateful. Grateful for the encounter, the reminder, the powerful truth. I sat there a little longer, thinking, feeling, processing everything, and came to a conclusion. I had no regrets, no words, no actions from last night. Everything had been necessary. It was release. It was honesty. And honesty, even when it hurts, is always the right path. 3 days passed in silence. I didn't receive any calls, no messages, no one knocking at the door. Only the gentle warmth of the small apartment. On Wednesday afternoon, when the doorbell rang, I already knew who it was. I opened the door. Robert was standing there. No tailored suit, no usual confidence. He wore a simple shirt, old jeans, hair slightly tousled, his face hollow like he hadn't slept for nights. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice low. I nodded, stepping aside. He walked in, looking around my place, the white walls, the faded sofa, the potted plant by the window. Nothing luxurious, but everything was clean, tidy, and real. Maybe for the first time, he truly saw where I lived. He sat down on the couch, hands clasped tightly. I didn't say anything, just waited. A long moment passed before he finally spoke. I'm sorry, he said, his voice hoarse. Sorry for the silence. For not asking. For leaving you alone to face my parents. I sat across from him, not rushing to respond. He sighed. That night, when you left the restaurant, I stood between them and realized something. My whole life, I was taught that money is everything. My parents, they used to be poor, truly poor. Rented homes, no food, constantly facing hunger. They're terrified of being poor again, so to them, money is everything. It's the measurement. It's safety. He lowered his head. I grew up with that fear. So I was taught that reputation, status, and being proper define a person. I never questioned it, not until I met you. I didn't judge you by money, but I still looked at life that way. I stayed quiet. Robert kept his head down, his voice dropping lower. I was ashamed, not of them, but of myself, for letting them say what they did to you and doing nothing. I want to apologize for my silence. I looked at him for a long time, then quietly said, Robert, sometimes silence is a response too. It shows someone is scared. The question is, do you still want to live like that? He looked up, his eyes sincere. No, I don't. I want to learn a different way to live, like you. No showing off, no proving anything, just real. I smiled, gently but not weakly. Robert, that's not easy. Because you were raised to believe value lies in what people can see. But truth is, real value lies in what money can't buy. He nodded slowly. I know. I think I confused having everything with being myself. I looked at him, my voice steady. If you really want to change, don't start by proving it to anyone else. Start by listening to yourself. Stop running. Sit still. Ask yourself, what do I want? Not, what do they want? Then do it. Even if it's hard, Robert was silent. Then he said softly, You always have a way of making things clear. I smiled lightly. It's not me who made it clear, Robert. It's you, because you were finally ready to hear it. He sat there quietly, looking out the window, where the sunset was tinting the glass with soft gold. I talked to my parents, he said softly. They're angry. They said you manipulated me, that you're the reason the family is falling apart. I shook my head. No, Robert. I didn't destroy your family. I just shed light on what was already there. He sighed. I know. And for the first time, I'm not afraid. I just feel lighter. We sat in silence. Only the ticking clock and the pale golden light spilling through the curtain. Finally, Robert spoke, his voice quiet but firm. I don't know what our future will look like, but I want to learn how to live right, not just to deserve you, but to deserve myself. I looked at him, my smile tinged with sadness. If you mean it, you don't have to deserve me. You just have to be honest. He nodded, stood up. Thank you for not giving up on me, for giving me a chance to become someone worthy. I hugged him. You already are. You just have to believe it. He left, his footsteps lighter. I closed the door, sat back on the old sofa, and looked around the little apartment. The cup of tea had gone half cold, but its scent still lingered. Outside, the sunset was painting the sky in soft shades, orange, pink, then fading purple. I could hear the wind brushing through the trees, the distant hum of cars down the street, and the ticking of the clock, slow, steady, as if time itself was breathing with me. In that moment, I realized, real wealth doesn't lie in what we possess, but in how we live with what we have. It's when we can sit still without fear of judgment, when we can love without needing to prove anything, when we can smile, not because we've won, but because we no longer have to pretend. Bianca and Thomas continue with their lives, lavish vacations, parties full of wine and empty praise. They have everything except peace. And me, in this little apartment, with an old window, a lukewarm cup of tea, and a message from someone I love. I have enough. I no longer need to pretend to be poor to find love, or pretend to be strong just to survive. I just need to be real. I stood up, opened the window, letting the evening breeze touch my skin. In that moment, I felt free. Not a loud, flashy kind of freedom, but one that runs deep, like breath. The freedom of someone who chose truth over performance, who chose quiet over applause. In the sky, the last light of day slowly faded, leaving behind a soft orange streak, like a gentle goodbye. I smiled quietly. Life, after all, doesn't need to be loud to be beautiful. It only asks that we cherish what we have and live true to ourselves. Wealth isn't having everything. It's no longer feeling the lack of anything inside. The story ends here, but now I want to hear from you. The one sitting there. Maybe also with a cup of tea, a quiet afternoon, or a silent moment. What did you feel in this story? Was there a moment that touched something in you? Have you ever had to pretend to be poor? Not with money, but with emotions, with truth, just to protect yourself? Leave a comment below. And if this story made you smile, even just a little, consider sending me a super thanks, even just $1 or $2, so I can keep telling healing stories like this. Every single dollar is like a whisper that says, keep going. Someone out there needs this. On the screen, more real-life stories are waiting for you. A wife who accidentally overhears her husband's secret. A mother who just lost her child, facing the coldness of the man she married. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next one. I'll see you in the next story.